welcome to today's meeting of Democrats of Greater Tucson. My name is Larry Bodine. I'm the president of Democrats of Greater Tucson, and I will be your host today. We have a couple of really interesting speakers coming up. We've got Kat Ripley, who is running for the Pima County College Governing Board. Kat, how's it going today?
I'm great, thanks. I just got off a Zoom with the Arizona Daily Star as well with my opponent. We're very different. We're completely different candidates, so that's good.
All right. So just to go over a little bit of a housekeeping event, if you would like to ask a question of Kat, you simply click on, bring your mouse down to the bottom of the page and you'll see participants. And then you'll have an option there to raise a little blue hand. And when I see that, I can call on you. But before we get started, we have an announcement. Trace Gallagher is on the call with us today. He is president of the Pima County Young Democrats, and he's also treasurer of the Young Democrats of Arizona, and he's going to tell us a little bit about their activities.
My name is Trace Gallagher. I'm the president of the Pima County Young Dems and treasurer of the Young Dems of Arizona. We're here to talk about what we're doing as far as our Get Out the Vote efforts and what we can use as far as support. We know with the recent death of Justice Ginsburg, this election just became a lot more important. We intend to take these next few weeks extremely seriously and plan on hitting the ground running to get as much work done on electing Democrats all up and down the ballots. We'll be text banking, we'll be phone banking. We have lits that we're going to be dropping off. We're going to be doing no contact lit drops. We're also going to be at some polling places on election day, providing what we're coining as mutual aid. This is a Young Democrats of Arizona effort. We're going to be supplying water bottles, food, PPE, whatever we can to make sure people are staying in polls to make sure they vote. We have a voter guide that we created for all of Pima County. We list county candidates as well as LD candidates that we'll be distributing all throughout Pima County to voters 18 to 35. Let's see. And in order to accomplish these tasks that I've talked about, we're going to be needing everyone's help. If you have time between now and the election, we would love for any volunteers that are willing to help out and reach the young vote. We know that historically turnout is very low and we want to change that. We're also hosting a trivia night fundraiser. The trivia is based on Arizona Democratic politics. That will be October 10th at 6 p.m. All proceeds will be going to all these efforts that I listed earlier. And it's a good opportunity for us to connect, have some fun, have some good laughs. I will, if you want to ask more questions, I apologize. Our email is right there, pimayoungdemocrats@gmail.com. pimayoungdemocrats@gmail.com. Our website is pimacountyyoungdems.org. We're also on Facebook, so you can find us there. We post all our events. So please feel free to reach out with any questions. I would love to answer them, and thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
All right, Trace, thank you very much. More power to you. We want to do everything to support your efforts, and thanks for taking time to talk to us today. Our speaker today is Catherine Ripley, a really outstanding candidate. She is running for Pima County Community College Governing Board, where Catherine is an adjunct professor of political science, and included in her distinguished career, her being a former naval officer, as well as a U.S. diplomat and a business executive. And we're so glad you're here today, Catherine. Please tell us about your campaign and how we can support you.
Okay, hi, thank you so much, Larry and Democrats of Greater Tucson for having me. This is an amazing group of people, and you get together every Monday. I teach on Mondays and I can never attend. But so thank you for this. I've been following your work and your events, and I love that you bring in speakers every single Monday. It's really, truly a great service to the community. So thank you for that. Thank you for your leadership, Larry. Yeah, so one of the things, I'm doing a lot of thank yous, but thank you especially for asking me to speak about this very down ballot race. It's going to be at the bottom of the ticket. I mean, there's going to be the president and everybody else, and school boards, to include this governing board, will be at the very end. So this is one of our concerns, is getting people to vote down ballot. So in addition to Larry's very generous introduction, I think that I will start out with why, the old why I'm running. And the bottom line is, I did serve in the military for 26 years. And I was a pioneer. We had, only 200 women and 4,000 men at the Naval Academy when I attended. And it was challenging. But through all that, you learn to be tough, but you learn to be gracious. And you know when to fight and when to negotiate. And so my background, because I did go through the ranks and eventually was able to run organizations that had thousands of men and women working under me. And when you look at the leadership and management skills that takes, a lot of buildings, a lot of people, facilities, supply, budgets, big budgets, safety, as well as crisis management and strategic plans in place. So that's a lot of moving parts to take care of when you are looking at a naval installation or a naval command. I have that background, as well as working at Raytheon for 6 years. So I understand the community, the public-private relationship between big industries and companies and factories in Pima County and our schools. Working with the community, working with Raytheon, I understood that it's the largest employer for our region. So I saw that happening. I raised 2 kids. I'm a mother, and they both went to college. And so I understand that plight as well. Not only having children in high school and in college, but all of the details surrounding how you're going to pay for it and how do you keep them motivated. And finally, I was most recently the executive director for Pima County Democratic Party. And that took a lot of moving parts. And I was largely in charge of the headquarters and the volunteers and the fundraising. And we went from being in debt to having a nice chunk of, at any given time, about $100,000 in the bank. So and I applied my military background to that, running a headquarters, people, supply, budget, all of that stuff. I teach at Pima Community College. I'm an adjunct professor there. And this governing board position that became open was actually not, I was not aware of it till about June. So I came in late in the game, but the more people talked to me, the more it made sense to apply all of that background and experience and knowledge. You live long enough and you do a lot of stuff. It made sense. It made sense not only because I've run large organizations and people and budgets and facilities, but also because I love it. I loved being in the Navy. I loved my sailors. I loved the stuff that I did. And I absolutely loved teaching at Pima Community College. But as an adjunct professor, I had a very small vision and view of what was really happening in the larger organization. There's 5 campuses, and there's centers of excellence. There's close to 2,000 people that work there. And Larry said 75,000 students. Right now we're below 20,000 in enrollment. At one point when it was very robust, it was upwards of 75,000, but it's been declining over the last 7 years or so. So with that, I mean, the reason why I'm running is just that. I feel like I can match my skill set, my experience with what's needed at Pima Community College and bring one more element and that is the fact that I care about it so much. Spending the greater part of my adult life in service to my country, to the nation and the world, it was really hard for me to stop and let go of that. So that's why I took the job at the Democratic headquarters, because I was asked, you know, we need you, we need your skills. So I stepped up. I volunteered for a nonprofit for preschool children in poverty because they needed me. So this is yet another example where I was asked to run, and the more I looked at it, the more I felt very strongly that, wow, yes, I could put these skills to use where it's most needed and in a place that I care about, whether it's the military or the Democratic Party or children in preschool, and now Pima Community College. So with that said, why I think it's important. I mean, with the passing of our recent wonderful Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I think everyone had to take pause and understand what she fought for and why. And I think a lot of people didn't know, actually. And one of the things that I'm really glad that you asked me to speak today is, you know, Tip O'Neill said, all politics are local. And what Ruth Bader Ginsburg did behind the scenes, without anyone even knowing it, what we have today, especially as women, were all because of the work she had done in the 70s and in the 80s, all the way till the day she died. And I think that when I think about Pima Community College being on the back of the ballot, way down there was in school boards, I think that that ballot is actually flipped in importance, because what's most near and dear to most of us are our children. And coupled with that is their futures, which also translates into the future of our community, our society, our state, and our nation. And that's where it begins. It's a very corny thing, but I think that's really what matters to me now that I'm in this community. One of the questions this morning from the Arizona Daily Star was, you know, what do you think the mission of Pima Community College is or should be? And it is just that, it's service to the community. My opponent chose very overtly to remove the word community from his speeches and from his political signs, from his signage. If you've seen them out and about, he calls it Pima College. I think it's a very symbolic gesture. I think community is the most important part of that title, not just the word, the notion and the true spirit of community. And here's why. Now more than ever, recovery from COVID, and we need to start this now, and it's going to take years, economically, socially, mentally, physically, to recover from this pandemic. I truly believe that community colleges, here Pima Community College, is going to be the linchpin. It's going to be the linchpin that will allow people, students, high school students, older adult learners, the chance to get immediately back into the workforce, to get back on their feet. The unemployment rate is horrendous. It was before COVID, disenrollment was pretty bad, but now it's getting even worse. I think that community colleges are the answer. Community colleges were made for this moment. They were made for the moment where we would have to train and educate a large piece of our population that can't afford to, or maybe don't have degrees to attend a university. In my opinion, free tuition should be a no-brainer for community college. That's something I would plan to fight for. I will definitely fight for that, but it's a fight that I need to carefully calculate and get my ducks in a row and have a task force helping me out with that, maybe some of you. So that's one thing, is access and affordability. And this is what the community colleges around the country are doing in planning for post-COVID recovery. Michigan just put out an article, Kalamazoo, announcing unabashedly that the frontliners and the essential workers are now going to be offered tuition-free community college, as it should be. I personally think it should be free to everybody, or as the Arizona State Constitution states, as close to free, if not free, for everybody. And that's colleges as well as K through 12. Or we're not talking P through 20 is the new buzzword. So this is another reason why I feel really strongly about being on this board, is because I can bring all those skill sets to really fight for something larger than what my opponent wants to fight for. I think a big piece of it, and he's basing his platform on private-public partnerships. So partnering with the community businesses. He has endorsements from Jim Click. He also has endorsements from the Southern Arizona Leadership Council, but he also has an endorsement from Vince Leach up in LD11. So we clearly know where his obligations lie, and that is keeping businesses happy with employees. And it is a win-win. When we have students, when we have citizens that need jobs, and we have businesses that need workers, that's absolutely a win-win. But what I would like to do is to tie all of that into the greater purpose of community college and not forget who we truly serve. We do serve the community, but we really serve the students. And I want to keep it a student-centric platform. I want to make sure that the governing board never loses sight that those are the people that we serve. So one of the things that I did was I met with all of the counselors, not all of them, but a lot of the counselors from Sunnyside, TUSD, Catalina Foothills, and Desert View High School. And I asked them, why is enrollment dropping so badly? Why are students not going to Pima Community College? What is up with that? It's affordable, accessible, they need jobs. What are they gonna do? What is the alternative? And they told me, this is, I'm no kidding, I had a long Zoom with them, and then I had several private conversations with these counselors one-on-one, and it's actually a simple answer. They're telling me that the recruitment of their students falls short. They'll come in the spring, give their pitch, this is Pima, and rarely, if ever, hear from them again unless they're invited. Catalina Foothills has a robust counseling department, and so they'll invite colleges back to speak. But for the most part, students are kind of on their own. And the counselors, as we know, high school counselors are underpaid and overworked. So they can't possibly take care, personally care as much as they try of every student. And students are saying that even if they get through a very complicated application process, there's no follow through or follow up and follow through. So even if they get through the process, once they're in, there's no follow up, there's no connection back to the high school or these students. There's the trappings of that. There's trappings at Pima Community College that state, oh, we have student services, but they don't take care, and they can't possibly take care of every student. To me, that's a no-brainer, and I think that's something that can be easily fixed. There's also a very poor tracking of those students through freshman year. So this is one of the big contributors to the enrollment going down. Again, it's about 19,000 students. At one point, it was over 70,000 at the height of Pima Community College in its glory days. So I try to find out why that is, and that's one of the biggest reasons. My opponent would tell you that it's because there's not enough advertising, and there's not enough, we have to prove to the community the value of Pima Community College. And I don't think we need to prove that. We know what Pima offers. The certification programs, and all the way from, you know, the certifications for the trades, electricians, plumbers, welders, EMT, aviation, auto mechanics. Those are all out there, and those are going great, and they're wonderful, and they give students certification in a very short time and go directly into a workforce. That to me is very attractive. That's not the problem. We all know those classes exist. It's getting those students and helping them into Pima, and then helping them to stay. That's the enrollment problem. We did the numbers, and if we even increased enrollment Sunnyside alone by 5%, Pima wouldn't have to increase tuition, and they would be in a much better position than they are today. So one of the things I would like to fight for, other than upping that enrollment, and that's easy, that's an easy connection with high school, is having a relationship, which I do with several state legislators, to urge them to get that funding back. So state funding for Pima Community College was zeroed out because of our governor and our state legislature a few years back. And there's no movement afoot to get it back. So zero. This is This is a community college. Community colleges across the nation are funded by the state. Some federal funding, some grants, and tuition. That's it. So parents or people that pay for tuition, state funding, maybe some grants, and a little bit of federal funding. So when you take away state funding, you have to be very creative. And Pima's done that, but it's been a Band-Aid. They're getting grants. They had a $2.5 million endowment from the Brown family about a week ago, which is wonderful. That $2.5 million will go into one of the centers of excellence, but really focused on, you know, one sector of the community and one industry. And that's great. They're doing that. They bought some land surrounding downtown, the downtown campus, which consists of 2 hotels that were going to be torn down, and the Historic Society didn't want to see that happen. So Pima bought the land and these 2 hotels, and they're going to pay about upwards of $10 million to restore them. And the initial purpose was to make them hands-on, on-the-job training for students in hospitality and hotel management. That was one of the reasons they gave to buy this land in these hotels. And I've heard since that that's no longer happening. So we don't really know what's happening with that purchase. There's also movement afoot to purchase a company that will provide online courses for anybody to attend. Foreign students, they're partnering with 4 other colleges across the country. And this company would only offer courses that were not for credit and not towards a degree. They would just be, it's big, essentially, and people hate when I say this, but it's essentially a privatized chunk of Pima Community College. That's what it's going to be. And the purpose, I get it, is to get more funding into the school because of lack of state funding and lack of enrollment. So this is one of the ideas, is to buy this company and to start making money from foreign students. And by the way, a lot of these classes, most of them will be recorded online classes that can be taught by pretty much anyone. The idea behind that, and I waded through some of these governing board meetings, which are long and they're painful. So that's why nobody watches them. But a lot of this is happening under the radar because nobody watches these board meetings. They're so long, they are boring if you don't, you know, if you're not in on it. But what I gleaned from them were some kernels of information that people don't know about. And that's the purchase of this online school and movement afoot to what they're calling unbundle the faculty role. So unbundling the faculty role in human talk means basically reducing the number of faculty and increasing the number of administrators and people that run this online school. So, and I'm not trying to call, you know, that the sky is falling. This isn't a complete done deal. But what concerns me, bringing it back to center, is that I want to be a board member because I watched the last board meeting that spoke of this on September 9th. And 2 of the board members were completely floored and had no idea this was happening. It's been happening for a year. These 2 board members, who also coincidentally happen to be the only 2 board members of color, two people from the Latinx community, were completely taken aback. And so that's where you get in the middle of these long board members and you kind of look and go, what? They had no idea. So I feel that with my background and being as outspoken as I am, but being a diplomat, and I'm not going to go in guns blazing, I feel like I have the ability to go in and insist on transparency because the board they are elected officials. So the people, we the people are their boss, and they are the boss of the chancellor. And that's the way it should work. And it should be civil. It should be preferably a nice, friendly team that works towards a common goal. And but it also needs to make sure that there are checks and balances in place so that the chancellor and his executive staff don't a year later lay this arguably important and significant paradigm shift that will affect the whole school. And my concern is that it doesn't affect and disenfranchise the population that Pima Community College was originally intended to serve, which is 55% of the school are minorities, most of them the Latinx community. Also, separate statistic, 55% of the school are women. A lot of women coming right out of college, a lot of single moms. It's, you know, it's a reflection of our community. It's a reflection of our society. And a lot of that 55%, again, most of them are Hispanic, Latinx, but there's a portion of them that are immigrants. They're DACA students. We have a big immigrant community here. And the only thing that we, I feel at Pima Community College cares about is ensuring that that immigrant community has the same opportunity to do what they came here to do, which is follow their dreams, improve themselves, become citizens, and become flourishing members of our society. That's all they want. One other thing, I'm not sure if I'm going over time here, Larry, you need to give me the cook if I am, but one other thing is I was also criticized because a large portion of my donations came from labor unions, the teachers unions, AEA, Pima Community College Union, the health, AFL-CIO, IBEW, the electrical workers. A lot of Arizona List is not a union, but they endorsed me as well. So early on, yeah, I got some seed money from labor unions, but I've been receiving a lot of donations just from the community, from $10 on to $1,000 from private citizens and from non-union organizations. But with that said, as a proud union sister, I'm proud of that. It makes sense because who do we serve in this community at Pima Community College? Working families. That's all unions care about. That's their bottom line goal, is to serve and care about working families. So I'm proud of that. I'm proud to be supported by the unions because those are the trades, the pipes, the plumbers and pipe fitters, the electrical workers, the Teamsters, the food industry. All of those are the people that are getting workers trained at Pima Community College, offering them apprenticeships and immediate jobs. And those apprenticeships come with salaries, and they come with benefits, they come with healthcare and a future. So I'm proud of that. That was the only thing that they criticized me on, besides some trolls calling me a communist. So that's if that's all they can get me on, you know, go bring it on. So with that, sorry I lost track of time. I can take questions.
All right, terrific. You know, yeah, when the Republicans have nothing to say, they just start calling Democrats socialists and communists, and it's pretty pathetic.
Yeah.
So this is your opportunity to ask questions. Let's see, Steve Linder. Steve Linder has a question. Why don't you unmute yourself and go ahead and ask away.
Okay. All right. Hi, Kat. The Pima, on the election ballot, this is a nonpartisan election, just like school boards.
Yep.
And I've dealt with Ethan Orr when he was a legislator, so I understand where he's coming from. My question is, even though this is a nonpartisan election, can you kind of crystallize and tell us to what advantage is it to have somebody, as it is on local school boards also, who is a Democrat and a like-minded person in thinking in that position as opposed to a Republican? Kind of crystallize that and explain why that really is to our advantage.
Thank you. I think that's a great question. I think because the democratic principles that we stand for, and you've read, I'm sure you've all read our platform that was very carefully crafted this past year. I mean, everything in that platform kind of says it. So in the debate this morning, it actually became clear. And I gave very direct and short answers to some very pointed questions that fall along party lines. So questions like Prop 207, and I guess that's not so much a party line, but questions that concern workforce development and basically supporting businesses over our students. So I think my platform is based on taking care of people and taking care of community. Ethan's platform is taking care of business. And that's traditionally been a Democratic Republican kind of fight, is big business, limited government, profit, capitalism. Whereas, and this is why I've been called a communist, which is kind of funny, but Democrats believe in taking care of our people, in at least getting towards the, inching towards free tuition for college. I think we need to do that. Republicans would never do that. I'm for the legalization under Prop 207 of recreational marijuana. I know the Democratic Party didn't take that stance, but I'm for it largely for a lot of reasons. But a lot of it is because $60 million a year of that revenue will come to Pima Community College. Not all, $60 million here. So that's another one. And he was very adamantly opposed to that. I also think a Democratic principle is fair wages and equal opportunity for all. I think that Republicans don't really believe in anything that has the word social, socialized medicine, regardless of the fact that Social Security and K through 12 education and Medicare and Medicaid and unemployment are social programs. I think that it's really important that you have someone with Democratic principles that will fight for that at community college of all places, because that's the population that we're serving, is the people that actually need those social programs. So I think it does matter. I think that I will fight for minorities as a woman of color. I'm half Japanese. I think you need representation. And I think that you're right, it's nonpartisan, but I would fight for, because I'm a labor sister, also all of the labor platforms, which is basically just fair wages and safe working environments. The right to, one of the things that they're fighting against is shared governance and meet and confer. It's one thing that this board and this chancellor has really gotten away from. And these are Democratic principles, is equality, civil rights, human rights, all of those things that people give lip service to maybe in the Republican Party, but we actually believe in it and fight for it. So this is, I hope that answers your question, Steve.
Thanks, Catherine. Next up, we have a question from Steve and Christina Early. Steve and Christina, go right ahead and ask your question.
Yes, hi, Kat, thank you so much. It was interesting. Appreciate you being here, but I have to admit I'm a little ignorant on the fact of how the governing board works. So are you and Ethan Orr going for one seat? Or if you could just explain that, I would appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. I should have talked about that.
Oh, wait, Kat, you're
okay. Am I there?
Yeah.
Okay, someone muted. So there are 5 seats on this governing board. 1 seat is open because District 1, Mark Hanna, decided to retire. He served 6 years. It's a 6-year job, and he's retiring. So that one became open. So they're overlapped, but there are 5 people. And again, we're elected officials. So we basically serve the people. We represent you, but our job is to serve as checks and balances over the policy, the procedures, and the decision-making, the budget, you name it, the curriculum that happens at Pima Community College, and largely is in the charge of the chancellor. The chancellor works for the board, and the board works for you. This is how it's supposed to work. So the chancellor was hired by the board. So when there's a new chancellor, the board is charged with finding, interviewing, and voting for the next chancellor. So this is the job, really, is to make sure that there's transparency, most importantly, which clearly that hasn't been happening as well as it should be, transparency and checks and balances, and ensuring that everybody's on the same page, everybody knows everything, that there's nothing hidden, and that the decisions are always made at the end of the day for the greater good of the school. And to me, it's community. And I think I mentioned Ethan took the word community out of his platform. So I believe that's the job of and it states it in their charter. The governing board is in charge of all of these procedures, and they're in charge of ensuring that the chancellor is doing their job, his job in this case.
All right, we have a question from Craig Markin. Craig, go ahead and unmute yourself. There we go. And ask your question.
With the declining enrollment, is there a situation with trying to keep all the campuses open? And what would be the board's reaction to that?
Yes, there are austerity measures taking place, as you know, in Phoenix as well. But we don't get state funding anyway. But we'll fight for that. I believe that all the campuses should stay open. If anything, if they should have to, just because of the budget, close one, it should be the downtown office, not one of the 5 campuses. I believe that we can do it. I think that there's been too much effort into making the college accessible to the entire community, from the far reaches of West Campus to East Campus to Northwest Campus, downtown, and now with the centers of excellence. I would fight to keep those open and find a way to budget them. But if we had to, yeah, the downtown office could be closed. But yeah, I would definitely fight for that, and I think it can be done.
Patsy Stewart has a question. The floor is yours, Patsy. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Kat. With all the climate change disasters around, and with our sun and with wind, I figure there'll be a lot more job opportunities in the clean energy field. Does Pima County have any specific track for that now?
Thank you. So as you know, Pima Community College decided to put solar panels on all of their, most all of their campuses. I believe all of them by now. So they made that effort. They're trying to become more green and more focused on sustainability and renewable energy. With that said, they do have one class, one course, which really only teaches students how to install panels. So that's an effort. But I believe, like you said, there is this giant opportunity to not just, because they're partnered with TEP, which is great, you know, because they really want people to work at TEP to do what TEP does, which we all know. I'm actually a member of the Citizens Climate Lobby as well. And, you know, what their charter is, right? So I would plan to definitely lobby for and try to get a pipeline, because that's really the wave of the future, is getting an actual pipeline, not a class on how to install anyone can do that. You can major in construction and do that. With that said, construction, our construction companies definitely need workers as well. But I think there needs to be a course that focuses on technical, on how to use and build and run the batteries, because that's the biggest issue that I hear pushback from electrical companies. Well, it's battery storage and and nobody knows how to do this. Well, let's teach them. This is precisely what community colleges were made for. Let's get a curriculum and have a direct pipeline into that industry, the solar industry. We're in Arizona. Everybody says this. We should be the solar ambassadors of the world. Think about it. So I think it makes sense. Pima Community College, oh my God, they could rule this industry, and they could really make their mark on the country if they started this initiative and having actual class, an actual, you know, one of the centers of excellence should be the Center for Renewable Energy, focused on solar as well as diesel, biofuels, wind energy, all of it. I think water energy, I think all of it can be a wonderful opportunity for a community college. It's a total win-win. It just everybody wins. Thanks, Patsy.
All right, I've got a question of my own, and that is, tell us about your class on political science, and do you find that the students are getting active in politics, local politics?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, one of my joys, one of my personal joys is teaching, and political science is one of the things that, you know, I lived through. So when I talk about the Cold War, I can say I actually fought in the Cold War and I fought the war on terror. And so it's nice to be like most of the adjunct professors, to be a practitioner, not just an academic. We need academics. We need those smart people that write books. But I was actually a practitioner, and I find that my students, 5 years ago when I started, and even now, weirdly enough, in Zoom, which is, you know, Zoom is just horrible, but we're here. I try really hard. I make them use their videos. I don't let them turn their video off so they can go off and make a sandwich or something. They're there. And my point is, from the very beginning, even with students in class, I really assumed wrongly that they would be looking at their phones, and on the contrary, their eyes would be glued to every word I would say. Students today, it's a good thing and it's a sad thing, but students today in political science classes, at least, they're worried, they're concerned. They want to know what the heck the Electoral College is. They want to know, how in the world did we get here today? How are we suddenly waking up and we have an existential threat to our climate? How do we have a political body that's so divisive that people ask you if you're a Republican or a Democrat and immediately there's hatred in the air? They're worried, they're concerned, and so they're glued. I love teaching, but it's a responsibility on my part to not be too partisan, but to give them facts. I really teach, most of my class is history. I teach them the history, because if you don't know history, you're doomed to repeat it. So I teach them all of the history behind everything from the Greeks, start with Aristotle, with Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, all the way through our revolution to the present day. And I teach in a way that it's fun and exciting. And Barbara Tuchman wrote a book on World War I called The Guns of August. And what I loved about that, and I try to follow her lead, is that it reads like a novel. It's not just a boring academic book. It's exciting. It's got character. It's got blood. It's got guts. It's got love. It's got hate. It's got everything. And that's the juice behind which I draw from to teach. And so I'm finding, to answer your question, Larry, if you keep it exciting, they're going to pay attention. But in this day and age, I don't even know if I even have to jump on my table and light my hair on fire. They just want to know. They're concerned, they're worried. The sad part about that to me is, but in a way it's good that we have young kids that are more knowledgeable. My kids and myself growing up in the 70s, we never really worried about that. We were kids. You know, our biggest worry was what we were going to wear to prom or who we're going to date. And so it's unfortunate that our kids are worrying about getting shot in school, or as an African-American male getting shot in their car. It's a sad thing that this is where we are today. And that's why I think these students of mine are so engaged in my classes. They ask questions, they linger. My class ends at 11:30, and they linger for about 45 minutes asking questions. And some of them have to go on to classes, but they'll stay on and some of them will just stay on and just to listen. They just want to be part of the conversation. So I hope that answers your question, Larry.
In one of your recent campaign emails, you referred to the University of Arizona's catastrophic decision to buy a for-profit university, and you were saying that this follows a dangerous trend. What is that trend, and why is that decision a catastrophe?
Well, it's clearly a catastrophe because they chose, for many reasons, but one of the most in-your-face reason is the fact that they chose, if they're going to do that, they chose the wrong one, because they chose a university that came already with baggage, which includes corruption and debt. So now University of Arizona is taking all of that on to include lawsuits. So that's a piece of the catastrophe. But more importantly, I think a lot of the professors, adjuncts as well as permanent professors, are worried about that too, because when you take on the mantle of now a for-profit online school, it diminishes and dilutes the core of what a university education should be about. And it should not be, in my opinion, profit. Education should never be for profit, but here we are, and it is. And there is a time and place for online learning. If you work all day and you want to learn a language, or you want to work towards a certification and you only have 3 o'clock in the morning to do it, great. Sign up for an online course and get that credit. But it can't be in the stead of a live teacher and interaction liberal arts, because the online schools are primarily technical and certification driven. So to me, it's a dangerous trend, because as schools not only just try to recover from COVID, but even before that, trying to keep up with their costs, this trend is to buy online schools to overcome that. Now, it's catastrophic also. There was an article in the paper that talked about the fact that they actually called it a vassal school. And basically what would happen is they would get the students that would apply for these online courses are for the most part students that either don't even live here or can't afford to fully enroll at University of Arizona. So basically, all of these poorer students are basically filling the void, the budget void that Arizona found itself in, U of A, to basically be able to keep U of A afloat for all the, and I'm really paraphrasing this article, the rich white folks that are attending U of A to be able to stay in class. So it's a really horrifying way to describe it, and they did this in the paper. But I found that other than the hyperbole, there is some sense to that, and I've seen that across the country where the universities are starting to go towards that goal. During COVID, we had to go online, but we're teaching live. We're teaching a virtual synchronous class. We are not hiring people in India to record a scripted class, put it online, and this is what they're doing, so that students from all over the world can log in, like going to Amazon Prime and shopping and putting things in their shopping cart and purchasing them as a commodity to learn. I don't understand how you can learn that. There's a time and a place. It's getting us through this pandemic, but we can't replace live teaching. We can't replace interaction, especially in a liberal arts education. Maybe some technical courses can be taught that way, but you can't teach history and English and economics even with a purely recorded version.
We have a question from Barbara Warren. Barbara, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Kat.
Hi.
You were talking about what kids had to go through when they were in school. When I went to school, the kids in many cities, not in my town, little small town, were taught to duck and cover. Yeah. And when my kids went to school, they were participating in protests against above ground nuclear weapons testing, which was causing fallout and cancer, and still causing cancer in northern Arizona and all the surrounding states where the nuclear bombs were blown up above ground. So I guess my hard question for you is, having worked for Raytheon, which is now making nuclear weapons, armed missiles with nuclear weapons, and what kids' future might look like, what's your position on this, and what do you feel about the use of nuclear weapons in our world?
I'm a strong believer that they're unnecessary, that we've proliferated them long enough that it needs to stop. There is no room for nuclear weapons in today's world. Absolutely not. The Cold War was the perfect example for that. We had them, they had them, many countries still have them, and the excuse was, well, we have them so that we don't have to use them. And that was the line that we were told in the military. Why do you have nukes? Why do you have a Navy? Why do you have an Army? Well, we have it so that we don't have to use it. So that line of thinking, you know, people can buy for a while, but clearly it doesn't make sense at the end of the day, especially with nuclear power. Maybe, yes, unfortunately, we live in a world where we need security and safety. We need, you know, a Navy to make sure that piracy doesn't take over oil fields along the coastlines of places like Africa and Brazil. But nuclear weapons, I personally, this is my personal opinion, I don't see any use or room for them in today's world. I see good use in nuclear power, but even that has to be done, and it is for the most part with specific care. I mean, you know, Chernobyl and regulation as well. But I think that renewable energy and sustainable energy is really the way to go. I don't think we need nuclear power if we poured all of our energies to that. But I hope that answers your question. I mean, basically just, yes or no answer, no, I don't think there's a necessity for nuclear weapons in today's world at all. And we should start getting rid of them. There's been movement afoot ever since the, Cold War ended to do that, but clearly that's not working.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate your position.
You're welcome.
Got another question for you, Catherine. You had mentioned one of the propositions. There's a second proposition, which is Prop 208 on Invest and Add. What are your thoughts and opinions about that?
Well, I'm a big champion of Prop 208. I think that it's a long time in coming. There's a lot of, I'm dumbfounded by a lot of the people and organizations that are fighting it, that are actually fighting against it. But I'm a true believer that, if the legislature and our governor is not going to come through, that it's our right, it's our constitutional right as Arizona citizens to put forth citizens initiatives like propositions. So it's our right. We need to do it. We did it. They got tens of thousands of signatures. So I got signatures too. So I'm all for it. I think we need it. Is it perfectly crafted and written? It never is, but I think it's crafted well enough to do what we need to do, which is put back funding that we lost back during the economic, the Great Recession, 2008, 2009. We've never recovered from that, and then some. So I think it's necessary. I think we need to pass it. And I think it's just a first step, really. I think we need to go even further with refunding our schools, our teachers, and all of the support systems around K through 12, pre-K through 12 education.
Kent, you mentioned at the beginning that the state funding for Pima Community College has been zeroed out. What steps can be taken to restore that funding?
Well, it's getting control of the legislature. So we need to control the legislature, and we need to lobby our district legislators to get that funding back. That's really, it's as simple as that. I think if all of us really rally around, and hopefully we will have a majority this year. I mean, we've been in this trifecta position for many years where, the governor and the legislature, the Arizona Corporation Commission, et cetera, has all been red. So I think if we can start turning that legislature blue, we can get that funding back. It's really that simple, is to get it voted back in. It's been too long. Prop 41 is just a Band-Aid. We should have had that years ago, which is basically lifting that cap on expenditures, the expenditure limitation, which was years ago, and it's based on it's a formula based on enrollment. I think that's a step. It's great. It needs to pass, but we also need to get it. When that money comes in, the governing board needs to ensure that it's spent where it's supposed to be spent. And I'm not sure that's being done, but that's one of the things that the governing board should do. But I think that getting that state funding is the key. That's something that no one has been really fighting hard for, I think, at the governing board. And I think that's something that that's a mantle I would take on. And I have friends in the legislature, so I would use those networks.
All right. One of the points in your platform on your website is that Pima County Community College has adopted reskilling and reimagining. Tell us a little bit more about that.
I think that was a term that they put out, the chancellor and the administration, in light of COVID. So that was a very recent, it might have been in the works before that, but it came out, they unveiled this reskilling, retooling notion. And what it is just that, is looking at getting people that maybe worked in industries that are becoming obsolete and reskilling them. Looking at people that didn't go into college right away out of high school and are now in the workforce working minimum wage jobs, getting them back into Pima and reskilling them, retraining them for a more viable career path. So that's basically what it is. It's all about exactly what it says: reskilling and qualifying them for new jobs, different jobs. One of them, I mean, just an example, this is an extreme example, is the new notion of automated trucks. And that's a big conversation that I had with some Teamsters union people, is they're concerned about that. If Pima Community College is going to go by way of retooling, reskilling the automotive industry into teaching them how to operate, because even though they're not unmanned, unwomaned, technically there's still someone in the truck, but they still need to know how to run them. So that would be one example of, you know, pivoting from just learning how to be an auto mechanic and into how to make these automated trucks work. We did this in the military, the same thing with when drones became a big deal. Fighter pilots were not happy with that because they had to either stop flying or continue till their plane became obsolete, but more importantly, start reskilling and retraining the younger airmen in how to manage and run drone technology. So that would be reskilling, same kind of fields, aviation, but in a new direction. And I think that's where renewable and sustainable energy could really come into play, is pivoting from coal and dirty energy into clean energy, and reskilling the population on how to work in the solar industry.
All right, terrific. We've answered all of the questions that we have for you, and we have a few minutes left. So Catherine,
Okay.
Please tell us how we can support you and what kind of help you need.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is a great organization, and I know that your main charter is to not only elect Democrats, but ensure keeping our elected officials on top of it and supporting our democratic platforms. So with that said, yes, this is a nonpartisan office that I'm running for, but I can't help it. I am by nature a strong and proud Democrat. I'm a union sister, and these are things that I'm going to fight for if I'm on that board. And I'm going to also always fight for transparency and what's right. I have nothing to gain or lose by this, except just continue my service. So with that said, the most important thing about this election is turnout. The most important thing after turnout is voting all the way down ballot. Everybody's concerned about the president and Mark Kelly. I get that, but I'm hearing some, I don't know about you, but I'm hearing some really positive things about both Biden and Mark Kelly. Those obviously are the two most important positions that we have to turn blue. We have to do it. But we also need to turn LD11 blue. We need to get Joanna Mendoza elected. We need Rex Scott in Board of Supervisors, and on down that ballot. I think the more we truly stick to what a representative democracy really means, the better off we will be as a society. So I think that your support in spreading the word to, of course, vote for me if you're in District 1, but to vote all the way down that ballot. My office, along with the rest of the school board, is going to be at the very bottom. We're at the, I don't know if it's flipped over, we're at the back and at the bottom. So this is what I would ask people, is to encourage your friends, you know, forward my emails or my Facebook pages if you know people that are that live in that district, to spread the word. It comes down to the voters. It doesn't matter how much my opponent brags about his work in the legislature. He was an LD9 House representative. None of that really matters, and it doesn't even matter that at this point that people even know what I did in the military. The bottom line is to get them to vote for the principles and the person that's going to fight truly in the spirit of representation for what they believe in. That's by definition what I would urge you to do, is to get people to vote all the way down that ballot.
All right, thank you so much, Catherine. I, for one, will definitely find you at the ballot, no matter which side of the ballot it's on. And on behalf of Democrats of Greater Tucson, I wish you all the best in the election. Thanks so much for coming to our meeting today, and we'll see you around the campfire.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Larry. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.